So right in here I've got some blackberry sprouts that are coming up, and blackberries have running roots, and the running roots put up new bushes. And so actually a lot of these separate bushes are actually all connected by one root system, and yet at the same time it has its own root system. So I'm digging this up, and I prefer to use my hands. One, I'm able to be much more careful and get a much more integrated root system by doing it with my hands versus a shovel, which is going to cut off the roots. The other aspect is that the energetics of hands are much more nurturing and beneficial for the earth, whereas the energetics of a steel shovel are not so beneficial. So if the ground is soft enough, which my ground is, hands are in much more ideal form. So I'm just digging off the topsoil first, getting down to where the roots are. As I'm able to start exposing the roots, I just sort of follow the bigger roots and see where they go. And I want to be able to pull up as much of it as I can. So as I'm able to get underneath the root, I can pull it up without breaking it. I'm just getting underneath the roots. And see right here, I can see actually where it's, right here is a bigger root that's coming from this bigger plant, and that's where it's joined up. So I'm actually going to break it off there because I want to keep intact the big root from the main plant. And then this little one actually connects to this little one here. So you can see they're intertwined, but they're all their own self-existing bushes at the same time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dig up all these little ones and plant them in their own space so that they can all thrive and be their own sort of little hub, little portal for their own propagation. And that way I'll be able to get the hundreds of bushes that I'm wanting to have here eventually without spending, you know, $8 to $15 per bush. It takes a little longer, but it's much more sustainable. You're not contributing to shipping and all the other many facets that go into something bought at a nursery. That's a grass root there, which I do not want. And the more root system that I get, the stronger the plant is, because the growth of the plant is totally based on the root system. The more roots, the bigger the roots, the more nutrients the plant can absorb. The more nutrients the plant absorbs, the faster it grows. So this little extra time I'm taking here to get as much of the roots as I can is paying off in the long run. So yeah, this root that I'm following right now is the source root, and it's stemming a real long way. It's going to lead all the way to this big plant here. So now that I've made it to its source, some clippers would be ideal. Got it. And then now these could be planted straight into soil because they've already got a nice root base. If you know where you want them, I'm going to plant them into some pots and let them get a little established. That way I can keep them watered really easily, and then plant them when I've got irrigation set up and I know exactly where I want them. Awesome. So I've got my little dig up blackberry bush here. I've got myself a pot, and like I said, I'm only going to be doing this for probably maybe a week or 2 weeks before I transplant it, but you could transplant it in a big pot like this and you can let it develop a really nice root system and then plant it again next year. Or you could plant it just straight into the ground if you know where you want it and you're ready to water it on a regular basis. But I'm going to dig down to the very bottom and I'm going to stick this real long root down in the bottom, and I'm going to sort of wind it around in the soil so that it's all stretched out. I'm going to put these other roots down there. Then I'm just going to pour some real nice, it's basically pure compost, but this is just my dirt. I just dig this right out of the ground, and basically I just have one huge compost pile for a garden. And then you want to keep anything you're just planting or sprouting or whatever, it needs to always be moist. You can't ever let it dry out because the root system is not very big. So I want to make sure I keep this moist at all times. You need to make sure it also has drainage though, because you don't want to let it sit in standing water or else you get root rot. So you want it always moist but always drained as well. There we go. Sun sets, sprinkler sprinkles, and I've got a really nice propagation here of fresh new blackberry bushes from sprouts. Got about 18. Each one of these would cost about 10 bucks, so that's about 180 bucks worth of harvesting right there. About an hour and a half. Nice.